Hi folks, Mr. Caden here to introduce you to a pretty cool website called Edmodo that you're going to be using for your class. And Edmodo is really social media for schools, and I'm going to show you what that means in a second. But before we get too far, let's talk about a couple of objectives for this lesson. First of all, you students will be able to use Edmodo to post your work, to communicate with teachers, and to access the information that you need. And you'll also be able to differentiate between using Edmodo properly and using it inappropriately. So by the end of this little lesson, you should be able to do both those two things, and hopefully I can accomplish that for you by introducing you Edmodo. So here's how we're going to do it. I'll start by talking about what Edmodo is. Then we'll talk about the different features that Edmodo has, and trust me, it has some pretty cool stuff. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to use it properly. So let's start by talking about what is Edmodo. All right, well, Edmodo is a learning-centered social network. So you've probably heard the term social network before. Maybe you saw the movie about Facebook. And basically, Edmodo is a little mini Facebook for class. And it looks like this. This is my Edmodo page for one of my classes that I teach. And you have your profile picture on the left, and you can type a little note here for everyone to see. And then there's all kinds of other stuff around the sides for you to use. Okay, so what else? You can do on Edmodo, you can turn in assignments, right? Like here we go. Your first assignment might be this revolutionary leaders proposal. You can click on turn in to hand in the assignments to your teachers. You can find information that your teachers have posted, like this template for the leaders proposal that your teacher may have posted. Or you can send messages to your teachers or to the rest of the class to ask questions, like I can't figure out how to cite this source or something like that. So it's kind of like a little mini Facebook, but it's all focused on the work that you're doing in class. So let's talk more specifically about a couple of features of Edmodo. So here's some key features. First of all, you have your own profile. There's this thing called the Spotlight, which I'm going to show you in a second. Then, of course, there are assignments that the teachers can post and you can hand in. There are these things called filters, so you can look at just assignments or just messages. And there's messages, of course, to send to your teachers. A calendar that shows you what's coming up, and your grades, which you can take a look at. So let's go ahead and look at all this stuff on Edmodo right now. Okay, so here's how you get to Edmodo. You just go to www.edmodo.com. Okay, and here we get to the landing page, which says Edmodo on the top. And then you have a username and password. Now, depending on who your teacher is, you may have a username and password already. Maybe you don't. If this is Ms. Vogel's class, then yes, you do have a username and password already, and you'll be given that in a moment. But I'm just going to go ahead and sign up for a class. And if you don't have a username and password, then you're going to need this thing called a group code. And here's my group code. And I'm going to sign up as Mr. Lippard. Okay, so my username will be J. Lippard, and I'll put in a password. And I can put a first name in there, Mr. last name Lippard, okay, and sign up. Okay, and this is going to put me right into the class that Mr. Lippard just signed up for, which in this case is Advanced Computer Science. So I hope Mr. Lippard's up to date on his computer science work. Anyway, here's Edmodo. This is what it looks like. It looks kind of like Facebook. Okay, and right when you get in here, you might want to start by adding a picture of yourself. So we can go to right here and click on Mr. L, right? Or actually we can click on settings, my mistake. Okay, and then we can add a picture. And if you have a picture of yourself, you can click choose file and go find a picture of yourself, or you can choose one of the pictures that's already in there. Mr. Lippard's kind of a smiley guy, so we'll go with the smile and the frown. Okay, you can put your email in there if you want to receive notifications on your email. And you can change your password from the one if your teacher automatically generated you one. Over here, if you want to get notifications, like via a text message, you could put in your phone number and tell them which wireless provider you have. And then you can get things like new assignments and messages to you from your teacher get sent right to your phone, which is awesome for your teachers keeping in touch with you. When you're all done, you can hit any of these saves, and that will save all the information that you've put in there. And then you've personalized Edmodo a little bit, just like your Facebook profile page. All right, so that's my profile. Let's talk about the Spotlight. Okay, so if I go back to the home page, up here in the top right is something called the Spotlight, and up here will be all the sort of spotlight means that big bright light they put on you in the stage, right? So up here in the top right under the Spotlight will be the important information that your teachers or your classmates might be sending you. So right now, for my computer science class, Mr. Lippard has 3 assignments that are due. So if he clicks that, it will spotlight all the different assignments that he has to do. So it's assignment 2, 3, and 4. There they are. That are due. Okay, so the spotlight can be really helpful in highlighting the things that you need to get done, that you need to respond to. All right, so that's the profile, that's the spotlight. Let's talk about assignments. So you can see as sort of this news feed thing in the middle here, there are these things called assignments that your teacher can post. And this one says, Mr. Caden posted this to Advanced Computer Science. And here's the assignment. You can see I can click here and get a Word document of the assignment. Here it is, right? And here's my assignment for class. And then when I'm done, I can click on this button that says Turn In. And to turn in the assignment, I can type and say, hey, Mr. Caden, here's my new assignment, and then enjoy. And then I can attach a file by clicking File, and let's say this is it right here. This is my Word document that has the file, and then I can click Turn In. Okay, and it's that easy. All you have to do is click on Turn In next to the assignment, and then you can click File here to attach a file for your response. All right, so pretty easy stuff, right? Sort of intuitive. If you want to turn in the assignment, you click on Turn In. It's rocket science. All right, let's talk about filters. Now this can get a little bit confusing. Here on Edmodo, if I want to only bring up assignments, I can click on the filters thing on the side here that says assignments. Let me click on that, assignments. And now instead of seeing all the other stuff that could appear on the news feed, like people's messages and things like that, I only have the assignments. And this can be helpful in really just narrowing down what it is you need to do. And once you have a filter selected, to close that filter, you click right here where it says Close Assignments. And now I'm back to looking at everything again, as opposed to just the assignments. Okay? A couple more things to look at. We also have messages, right? So if I want to send a message, it's quite easy to do. I can just click right here, and I can send a message. I can say, hi class, does anybody know what the word anti-disestablishmentarianism is? Or means? Okay, I don't know what that word means, and I don't know if I spelled it correctly, but it's quite a word. Okay, and I can send that to the whole class by typing in that message right here in the box. And then where it says send to, I can type the name of the class. This class that I'm in is called Advanced Computer Science Q3, and I could send it to the class just like that. Okay, you can't send it to another classmate in the class. For example, that kid's not in there. You can send a message, however, either to the whole class or to the teacher. So if I wanted to send a message to Mr. Caden, I can do that quite easily. Okay, so you can have a little private chat on here. This isn't Facebook, right? It's not for chatting with your friends. But if you want to ask a question to the whole class or to your teacher, that you can do. And of course, you can attach a file or a link or anything to any of the comments that you make to everyone. All right, so that's how you send messages and post things. Let's look at the calendar and grades, and then we're done. So here on the top, you can click Calendar, and you can see in the calendar when different things are due. So you can see there's an assignment due today, there's an assignment due tomorrow, there's an assignment due the next day, and this can help you just to keep track of when your different things are due. And this is pretty nice. You can print it if you want or export it and put it in your calendar at home. But this is just nice to keep track of when everything is due. So you click on Calendar to get the calendar. All right, and last thing, if I click on Grades, I can see all my different grades for the class. And what it will show is all the different assignments and the grades that I've gotten. And since I haven't handed anything in yet for this class, all I have is NA for not applicable. But once you start handing things in, it'll say waiting here if you've handed it in and your teacher hasn't graded it yet. And once your teacher's graded it, it'll tell you the grade. And then at the bottom here, you'll get your overall points so you can calculate whether you got an A for the class, which I'm sure all of you will do. Cool. All right, so that's just an overview of some of the key features in Edmodo. My guess is that when you guys get in there, it's going to be very intuitive for you. You'll just pick it up really quickly. You won't need a teacher really to help you out with it. In fact, you might even be better than the teachers. The last thing I want to talk about, which you might not be so spectacular about, is how to use this Edmodo thing properly. So what does that mean? I want to specify, I really want to accent the fact that Edmodo is an extension of class. It's not like some separate thing on the side here. What happens on Edmodo is really a part of the class. And so that means that anything you do on Edmodo, you would want to think when you're doing it, would I do this in class? So that means like what you say and what you do, and there should be no difference. So that means you have to address each other respectfully. It means you have to talk to your teachers professionally. You don't say like, yo dog, I handed in my assignment. You say like, dear Mr. Caden, here's my assignment. You want to keep the discussion relevant, right? You don't want to post in there about Justin Bieber, as interesting as that might be. Okay, this is part of class, so you don't just raise your hand up in the middle of class and talk about Bieber. As again, I know that's really interesting stuff, but what goes on in Edmodo is for class only. And obviously, we shouldn't, I don't even know if I need to say this, but there shouldn't be harassment or bullying or foul language or anything like that. Again, you wouldn't do that in class, and so that means you shouldn't do it on Edmodo either. Okay? And of course, your teacher will be looking at your stuff that you're doing there and taking a look at your citizenship grade and how that relates to your work on Edmodo. Okay, so that means that this isn't just some junk that we're doing on the side. This is a small little learning community that we want to keep professional so that we can all learn quite a bit from using it. So in order to accent this point, I want to take a look at a couple of comments, right? So when somebody posts something, you can comment on it or write a reply. So let's say that Mr. Caden posts this 3-paragraph essay as the first assignment for your class, okay? And let's look at a couple of different comments or responses that some people might have written. So Dave wrote, "This assignment is ridiculously whack," okay? Michael J. wrote, "Mr. Caden, I have a question. Is the assignment due at midnight or after school?" Mike D says, "Michael, duh, dude. Everything is due at the end of school. Where'd you get midnight from, idiot?" And Alexandra says, "Michael, it's due after school. Mr. Caden mentioned that in class today." You're welcome. Okay, so let's take a moment to think about whether these are appropriate or inappropriate comments. So take another look at each one. Take a few seconds while the music plays and see if you can figure out which ones are good and which ones don't belong on Edmodo. All right, so let's take a look at the 4 of them again. Let's look at the first one. Dave said, "This assignment is ridiculously whack." Is that something that you would say in class and expect your teacher to find acceptable? I think the answer to that is no. You want to address your teachers respectfully, and you want to keep the conversation on Edmodo productive. We don't want to just say, "Oh, this is whack" or something. We should be talking about the content and not just calling things whack. So that's no good. All right, let's talk about Michael's second comment. Said he has a question, right? He says, "Mr. Caden, I have a question," and asks a legitimate question. He's not sure if the assignment's due at midnight or after school. This is the exact thing that Edmodo is spectacular for, because then if a teacher or a classmate sees this question, they can help by answering it for you. So if you have questions, please do respond and reply on Edmodo. So that's a great comment. I love that comment. All right, let's go to the next one. This one's from Mike. It says, "Michael, duh, dude. Everything is due at the end of school. Where'd you get that midnight from, idiot?" Okay, lots of things wrong here. We're going to use professional talk, so we're not going to use duh like this, and we're not going to call anybody an idiot or put them down or anything like that. This doesn't belong in class. It doesn't belong at school. It doesn't belong in Edmodo, and it's completely unacceptable for our work together. So that's no good. All right. Alexandra, on the other hand, answers Michael's question and says that it is due after school and explains that Mr. Caden mentioned that in class. And so this is very professional. She answers the question. She's nice about it. She says, "You're welcome." She's not putting anybody down. In fact, it seems like she might sort of be being nice counter to Mike right here. So what she said is great. I love it. If you can answer people's questions, then everybody's going to learn together a lot better. So this is great. So my guess is at this point you guys can see the difference between what's appropriate and not appropriate on Edmodo, right? You can write anything you want if you want to write it. Okay, we can't stop you, but there's appropriate and there's inappropriate for class, and we want to make sure that we're using it as appropriately as possible, which means not putting people down, which means being professional, and which means keeping the conversation relevant, not just calling stuff whack, but by talking about what we need to do to learn together. Okay, so I had 2 objectives coming into this, to show you how to post your work on Edmodo and how to communicate and how to tell you, whether something is good or not good to do on Edmodo. And hopefully I've gotten that across. I'll be walking around, probably your teacher will be walking around, so as you get started with Edmodo, you can ask some questions if you're confused. But go ahead and get started because it's a lot of fun.